We all know the New York Islanders need a puck-moving defenseman, but who's available out there and how do they fit with the New York Islanders? We've got that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And we are now also available on Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just search for Locked On Islanders. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. A lot to get to. Busy show today. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, and we will get to a question from a listener later on in this show, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter. I'm at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. I'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings throughout the offseason, including hirings, firings, trade rumors, free agency, and the draft. We've got it all covered for you in this pivotal offseason right here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. So we have spent some time during this offseason discussing the Islanders' need for more goal scoring. And goal scoring is definitely something this team needs to add. But another area that has been a problem for the Islanders, and that I think we need to discuss just a little bit more, is the need to add a puck-moving defenseman. We saw this Islanders team, despite the outstanding goaltending they got for most of the season, and despite the fact that they have a pretty solid defense core, top to bottom, ranking fifth in the league in goals against over the course of the season, well, they still had difficulty clearing the puck out of their own zone. And part of the reason for that was the lack of adequate puck-moving defensemen. You basically had two guys on the ice who were playing that role, and they both struggled in their own end at various times. You certainly had Noah Dobson, who definitely regressed in his own end. And then you have Sebastian Aho, who, because of his size, also often struggles in his own end. And look, I think almost all of the Islanders' defensemen at one time or another had difficulty clearing the zone, whether it was skating it out, passing it out. We saw too many turnovers, and it just added up to some real problems for this team. Well, look, the Islanders need to add, without question, a puck-moving defenseman. It's something Lou Lamoriello has talked about for a while right now, but yet he has not quite gotten that job done. So now what happens? Well, the Islanders, there are a number of free agents out there, but there's a little bit of a problem with many of them. Let's assume Scott Mayfield is going to leave. You have a bigger need, if Mayfield does depart, for a right-handed shot. And most of the free agents available who fit the critique of puck-moving defensemen, they are left-handed shots. So we're going to break it down. Going to look at three potential free agents and maybe one trade possibility. The first free agent, Dimitri Orlov, played for the Boston Bruins in the playoffs this year. Obviously, spent most of his career with the Washington Capitals, which, by the way, means that he is familiar with Lane Lambert and familiar with Barry Trotz. He is the kind of guy who, he had 36 points this year, splitting the season between Washington and Boston. A lot more productive with the Bruins, where he had 17 points in 23 games, than he was with Washington, where he had 19 points in 43 games. But, the 36 points is kind of a career high. So that part of it is, he's not going to necessarily be that big point getter, but he's steady and he moves the puck. He's 31 years old. He's another Russian, so he would fit in with Romanov. He would fit in certainly with Sorokin, and if Varlamov is back, Varley. But he's also 31 years old, 5'11", 214, so he's not the tallest guy, but he's got thickness. And again, it depends. Is he the answer to getting younger, faster, and more skilled? Well, he is more skilled. Not the youngest guy in the world, but here's the deal. Cap hit last year, $1.275 million. So is it possible you could bring in Orlov for $2.5 million? That might make it something worth looking at. Another Russian is Vladislav Gavrikov. Now, Gavrikov, bigger guy, 6'3", 221. He played with the Kings and Blue Jackets this past year, being traded at the deadline. Had one really productive offensive season in Columbus in 2021-2022, 5 goals, 33 points, and, not exactly a power play guy, not a big offensive guy, also a left-handed shot. But the good news, the size is there at 6'3", 221, and he's only 27 years old, won't turn 28 until November. And that certainly gives him, a little bit more as far as the getting younger part of it is concerned for this Islander team. The cap hit, though, last year, $4.2 million. Don't know if it's really worth spending, that kind of money on Gavrikov. Then here's another player that I thought was interesting, Damon Severson. Severson, of the New Jersey Devils. Why? Well, drafted in 2012 by the New Jersey Devils. 6'2", 205, only 28. He'll turn 29 in August. Again, none of these guys are guys I would want to sign to a 5, 6, 7, 8-year contract. But for a 2 or 3 year deal, yeah, maybe. And look, 11 goals, 46 points in 2021-2022, fell to 33 points, but here's a guy who could certainly give you some help on the power play, has done that rather well, had 5 power play goals in 2021-2022. He has some of the tools you want, but also a left-handed shot. And again, the cap hit a little under $4.2 million. He's going to want $5 or $6 million minimum. We'll see whether or not he gets it. He's a right-handed shot, and that certainly is more to the Islanders' advantage. The fact that he is more familiar with the Islanders' system, as in, Lou Lamoriello at least, that certainly would be helpful. Then there's a player who might be available via trade. And again, it depends on what the Islanders would have to give up. But that's Josh Morrissey, who is rumored to be available in a trade with the Winnipeg Jets. Morrissey, 28, just turned 28 in March. A left-handed shot, but again, very much an offensive player. 76 points in 78 games, 16 goals. Might be the best fit, but also most likely going to cost a pretty penny. And the Jets, they're not looking to take on salary. They're looking to save money. So that sort of creates a little bit of an issue there, but I would love to see Josh Morrissey in an Islander uniform. I think it would be very beneficial. All right, we have got a lot more to get to. We're going to answer some of your questions, plus Ryan Pulock's season and, what his future role will be with the Islanders. We've got all this and more on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. Get killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, so you could stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you'll have. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you with 110% of the difference. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So getting to some of your questions, these are from Frank from the Jersey Shore. And first question he asks, why would a free agent who could make the Islanders quicker come here with Lou still in charge, considering his track record for signing older, slow players? Frank, it's a good question. And the Islanders system tends to emphasize defense first, and it emphasizes, checking and physicality and positioning more than it emphasizes speed. But, the reason that might be a good fit for a player with speed is because you add something to the mix. And, if you're the only guy on a team or one or two guys on a team who has the speed that the team lacks, your role could be bigger on that team because you do not have to deal with three other guys on the roster who could do exactly what you do. So there is that aspect of it where a player who is speedy and wants a bigger role, and I think Pierre Engvall was a good example of that. He was buried on the third or fourth line in Toronto because of the, top six talent, especially the big four. He comes to the Islanders, ends up settling on the second line, and does very well for himself, especially down the stretch and in the playoffs once he adjusted to the system. I don't think Engvall has the same opportunities in Toronto because there are players ahead of him who are faster and who are more skilled than he is. On the Islanders, he's got a bigger role. So I think, the system may not fit them exactly identically. It's not like going to Edmonton or Toronto, but you may, because you have a different skill set than everyone else, have more opportunities to get on the ice and do what you do because, quite honestly, the team needs it more. It's not what they have. Second question from Frank. Did Bo Horvat underachieve, or did the way the Islanders play inhibit him? Frank, I'm going to say both. I'm going to say that both of those things were factors in the reason that Bo Horvat's numbers kind of fell off after he joined the Islanders. And, Horvat mentioned on getaway day how difficult it was for him to be away from his family, living out of a hotel kind of a thing. Don't underestimate that. Having your, family 3 hours time zones away not being able to see them regularly, not knowing the area, adjusting to, new places to shop, new barber, new doctor, new everything. That's part of it. Adjusting to new teammates, always part of it. And yes, adjusting to the Islanders' system is part of it. We saw Pierre Engvall really struggle in his first 5 or 6 games with the Islanders. We saw Kyle Palmieri when he was first traded to the Islanders looked terrible for the last, 18 games or so of the regular season. Started to pick up his play a little bit more in the playoffs once he got used to the system a little bit more. So I think the Islanders system did inhibit him a bit. The loss of Matthew Barzal certainly inhibited him a little bit more. And I think the Islanders just didn't have a player after Barzy went down who could complement Bo Horvat. And they ended up putting Anders Lee on his line. And as everydayers will know, I've mentioned Lee and Horvat, their skill set too similar, and it makes it difficult. They're both guys who are going to get a lot of deflections, rebounds, tip-ins, goals from in close near, the blue area, just in and around the crease. You can't put 2 guys like that on the same line without someone who's going to get them the puck, someone who's going to skate. Barzal was that guy. You lost him after a handful of games early after the trade. And then even in the playoffs, Barzal was far from 100%. And the Islanders just didn't have that third guy to be the skater. And I think they tried, they tried Parise at different times. They even tried Hudson Fasching a little bit. They tried, several different players. Engvall had a shot at it, but realistically, I think the lack of legitimate line mates, the change in system, being away from his family, adjusting to his new teammates, all of those things combined to make Bo Horvat's numbers fall off. And here's the important thing. What is Bo Horvat going to do next year? Because this is when the $8.5 million per year salary kicks in. This is when the Islanders need Bo Horvat to be the 25, 30, 35 goal guy he can be, to contribute on the power play, to win faceoffs, to lead. This is when they need Bo Horvat to really do his thing and show that he was worth giving up your number 1 prospect in Atu Ratu, a number 1 draft choice, Anthony Beauvillier, one of the few players on your roster that did have speed, and then all that cap space that you signed him to for the 8-year, $8.5 million per year deal. So a lot of pressure on Horvat, but he'll have a complete offseason. His family will join him. He'll know the players on Long Island. He knows the coaching staff now. He'll know what's expected of him. And folks, it is time for Bo Horvat to step up, show what he's made of, and give the Islanders a lot more than what he gave them during the year, which was 7 goals and 16 points in 30 games. That is about a 44-point pace over 82 games. And then 2 points, 1 goal, 1 assist in 6 playoff games. And the goal was a garbage time goal at the end of the game. The Islanders already had 1. So, look, Bo Horvat knows more is expected of him. Now he's got to come through and basically show that he's worth the money. Otherwise, boy, are the Islanders in trouble based on all the money they've allocated to him and the lack of production they got last year. Not time to panic, but definitely eyes on Bo Horvat entering next season. All right, we're going to continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders. Ryan Pulock How did he do? What's his future with the team looking like? And we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and more still to come on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. So Ryan Pulock, what did he do for the Islanders? Well, the answer is a whole lot. He's 28. He'll turn 29 before the start of the season. 6'2", 216 pounds, 5 goals, 26 points this year. Not really at this point, what we get from Ryan Pulock is a guy who is primarily a defensive defenseman, but he still has that dangerous shot and can still help offensively. One of his 5 goals came on the power play this year, and he had 4 power play assists. He is not a power play quarterback, but he is a guy who you could set up to take blasts from the point. The issue, however, with Ryan Pulock is his shot is not always accurate. And if you're on the power play and he takes that hard shot and misses, it could be the odd man rush heading back the other way. Pulock attempted 301 shots this year, only had 126 on goal. That's about 38%, let's say, off the top of my head, of his shots landing on goal. By contrast, a year ago, 226 shots attempted, 122 shots on goal. So that's an interesting difference, that under Lane Lambert, his shots just weren't getting through, weren't as accurate. Pulock, a rock in his own zone, played in all 82 games this year, and he is your best defenseman by far. If you were going to name a defenseman who was going to be the team's MVP, I can't imagine giving it to anyone other than Ryan Pulock. His highlight of the season, I think it's easy, at least to look at it offensively. Pulock had 4 assists back in November as the Islanders beat the Flyers, and he was a +3 in that game. That was the game where the Islanders really pulled away late in the game and won 5-2 after being down 2-1 late in the second period. Had 3 third-period goals, and Pulock, offensively at least, was at his best. And in the playoffs, he had a goal and 3 assists, which, again, solidly puts him near the top. Interesting quote, by the way, from Ryan Pulock. And, always sort of looking at these things. And last week, he did an interview with NHL.com, and here's what Pollock had to say about the Islanders' current situation. Every single team has to go through this. I don't think that we need a big change. Yeah, we have an older group, but I think those guys are important to the leadership and success on this team. They've been here, and they know what it takes. It's a tweak here, I think, and a tweak there. I don't think it has to be anything crazy. I know a lot of fans don't agree with that assessment, but that is the assessment from Ryan Pulock. Oh, and by the way, Bob Nystrom quoted as saying, I think there might be a few things in the works. The team's a little older. I think they may need a little bit of new blood in there. So there's Ryan Pulock basically saying he hopes not a lot of change is coming. Bobby Nystrom saying it makes sense that there will be some change coming. We'll see what the answer ends up being. As for his role next year, Pulock going to continue to be a top pair defenseman, going to continue to play a lot of minutes for this Islander team. Realistically, he averaged almost 21 minutes per game, and I think we'll see him do at least that, especially if there is more defensive depth in the playoffs. He would give you even more, 24 minutes, in the overtime game, 26 minutes. And again, I just think he will be back, and he will be a mainstay on this defense core. He is in his prime. He is signed, sealed, and delivered for the foreseeable future. and that is good as well, as he has, a lot of time left. He is signed beyond the next 5 years. So Ryan Pulock going to be an Islander for a while. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And yesterday was the 48th birthday of former Islander defenseman Jani Niinimaa, the Finnish defenseman drafted in the second round by the Flyers back in 1993. Made his NHL debut in Philadelphia in 96-97, then played for the Edmonton Oilers, had a career-high 12 goals and 46 points for the Oilers in 2000-2001. Joined the Islanders late in the 02-03 season, stayed with the team through 05-06 when he was traded midseason to the Dallas Stars. Played for the Montreal Canadiens in 06-07 and then returned to Europe to close out his career in 741 NHL games, 54 goals, 319 points, and 733 penalty minutes. He could put the puck, he could be a productive offensive player. His best game as an Islander, we go back to the playoffs. The Eastern Conference quarterfinal, first round of the playoffs, Islanders and Tampa Bay Lightning in game 2 of the series in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay leading the series 1-0, but the Islanders managed to win this one by a score of 3-0. And Jani Niinimaa had the game-winning goal. It came on the power play midway through the first period, and then he assisted on the game-clinching empty net goal in the final minute. So 2 points there in the playoffs for Jani Niinimaa. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Want to thank everyone again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll continue our player-by-player look at the team with Josh Bailey. And I know, when it comes to the future of Josh Bailey, there's probably more to discuss than anything else right now on this team. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And, of course, let's go Islanders.